familiars. This is Matt Orozco here from Macabre Daily, and I have the pleasure and the honor today to speak with Chuck Russell, who is someone I think most horror fans do know, but if you don't, you should know. He's a director, screenwriter, producer, one of the minds behind certainly some people's favorite Nightmare on Elm Street film, Dream Warriors. He's also did the amazing remake of The Blob. You've also stretched beyond horror into areas like action with Eraser and also comedy with The Mask. And we're here today to talk about your remake of Witchboard, which is going to be hitting theaters on August 15th. So, Chuck, it's a pleasure to have you with me today.
Pleasure to be here.
Well, I know we don't have all the time in the world, and if we did, I would probably ask you way more questions, but I'm going to jump right into the first one, which is how did you and Greg McKay begin working on a Witchboard remake? What was the kind of genesis of this idea to revisit Kevin Tenney's film?
Well, Greg has a long history with Tenney and came to me with the property originally. And Greg wrote a draft of the screenplay that was a little truer to the original. And I just thought, I don't know, there's Witchboard created, honestly, the Ouija board subgenre, if there is such a thing, was the first Ouija board movie of many. But Witchboard's a cool franchise. There were three films that were amazing in the 80s. They were fun and they were scary. Um, so I was inclined towards it, but then I realized I had been writing about a pendulum board movie because pendulum boards predated Ouija boards. They're spell casting. They're very magical and fanciful. They have all kinds of, as an art form, they're amazing. But they've been
Yeah.
around since ancient Egypt. They were outlawed by the Pope in the 1700s, and women were getting burned at the stake for having them. Thus, they kind of disappeared from history, and Ouija board was a natural evolution. So I thought, wait, why don't I take those concepts and everything else I ever wanted to do in the horror genre? I am challenged by my own work in horror. I didn't want to do horror again until I felt I could top myself. So for what it's worth, this film is a challenge to myself to top my other work and take it further using Witchboard as a wonderful reimagining of a classic piece of pop culture.
Well, I love to hear that you're challenging yourself, especially considering all that you've accomplished. And if I do say so myself, with all due respect to Tenney's original film, I actually really enjoyed your remake more so than I enjoyed the original because of how much it expands and fills in gaps that I think the first film, had in regards to the lore and the storytelling. And when you were going about writing the script, especially trying to pay homage to what Kevin had done, but also bringing in some of the research you've clearly done in regards to like not just tokens of witchcraft, but also the history. Were there any non-negotiables that you're like, we have to make sure we include these things or we maintain these things?
For me, it was I have to make sure that I honor witches and why, the ones that were innocent, that were burnt at the stake for having pendulum boards, and even homeopathic remedies. I mean, in those days, they were called out as witches. And I believe that the best villains in film are ones where we understand what drives them. It's why we had fun in Elm Street 3 giving a deeper backstory to Freddy Krueger the fans really liked. Is once you get that, you're like, okay, this character's unstoppable. And
Yeah.
our witch queen, Naga Soth, has a revenge motive so strong, it took her to the dark side and drives her spirit into not a good place eternally, and is a generator of a lot of the horror in the film. So I wanted to be true to witches, and honestly, I wanted to do what I considered a sensuality of Wicca, because there is such a thing, and
Yeah.
white witches are also in this picture, and we do honor what Wicca is, even though, of course, it's a fantasy horror film.
Yeah, no, you certainly do. And I think what is so fascinating about your all's take on the property is that you do get this kind of sympathetic look at and I'm going to mispronounce it, but Nazdagak, is that you're going to get this
Naga Soth.
Nagasath, you get this very sympathetic view of her and her background, which also plays nicely into I'm forgetting her name now, the Emily's
Emily, Emily Madison Eisman, who does a terrific job from Jumanji and Annabelle. She's just a terrific star.
Yeah, I mean the whole cast. I mean, one, they're all a very attractive cast, so it's kind of a very easy film to look at. But beyond that, one of the things that this film reminded me of quite a bit was Wishmaster, because it has such bonkers murder set pieces and practical effects. to the point where you're almost like so blown over what you're seeing. And considering how much work you've done in the past with practical effects across the films you've done and throughout your career, now with the augmentation of CEI or CGI, what do you see as kind of being the pros and the cons about this new interplay between practical and computer animation?
Look, I love them both. It's like the paint box has expanded on what we can do, both obviously with CGI, but with practical effects too, because there is technology to practical effects, and there is a craft of practical effects that's improved. And I myself have just a lot of experience in it, so I'm confident in what my concepts are in practical effects. But look, I helped pioneer CGI with Jim Carrey and The Mask back in the day, and I love that. But I also feel CGI is better suited for sci-fi or in my case, comedy. Horror, we really, our first job is to scare the hell out of the audience. There's a catharsis. You go there for that catharsis. You can't go in a roller coaster and not have the thrill. I mean, I'm there to
Right.
scare. I want to do it through a great story and great characters. But at the bottom line, why is this story scary? Where is it going? How am I dramatizing dark against light in this story? So practical effects are the answer for a number of reasons. First of all, the cast is terrified. It's my, well, it's true. They won't admit it, but the truth is, if they know a full-scale practical effect is happening, and I give Madison Eisman props because it's not really a spoiler because there's a bit of the scene in the trailer, but there's a scene where hands explode up out of the bed. I mean, many hands. Those are not separate elements. That was all on stage. The whole bedroom set's 8 feet in the air. I had puppeteers under the bed looking at a small monitor. They were mostly blind, grabbing her body as I shouted, one, two, three, it was amazing and is one of the practical effects that I got to design that came out even better than I anticipated. And I give Madison credit. Try that. I mean, imagine that. You can't try it, but imagine being in a bed having to act like you're asleep and suddenly these hands really grab you hard and pull you down into the bed. It was a really kind of an amazing event. And she was game. And the same thing's true. The entire bathroom, there's a bottomless bathtub that she really went down into. I mean, these are things that we worked very closely together, and she's a champ.
I mean, well, first, knowing that you built those sets and that you were able to do those practically, I mean, the hand scene in particular looks so good. So I think congratulations on successful deployment of those scenes because they look great. And
To be,
same with the
to be honest with the fans that are picky, I use CGI for cleanup. We do wire cleanup,
sure.
we do some color, but those are all real time, full scale, no separate elements on really all the scares in the film. So I use CGI it's a great tool, but it's primarily practical. And when the cast has that tension, it communicates really well to the audience. So it's a number of things, the kinetics of a real practical effect and the performance. You can't get that performance on a green screen where the
No.
coffee is waiting for them nice and warm beside the set. It's a different experience.
No, it certainly is. And there's many of those. As I think of particularly a scene in a restaurant that is going to leave a lot of folks with their mouth agape because there's so much that happens in that scene that I think it's not just fun to watch, but it's also kind of wow, I would hate to be in that situation. So you've certainly done a good job of scaring up kind of the reality of what could go wrong in a very fantastical situation. Um,
Don't you find it odd that that scene comes from being at a great steakhouse and seeing the waitresses hand out these 5 pound enormous steak knives to random strangers sitting 2 feet from me? I really think, they're arming the patron,
yeah,
right?
I mean
So,
that's Chekhov's steak knife right there. So
so when next time you see a big steak, after seeing Witchboard, next time you see the steak knives passed out, you may have second thoughts.
yeah, no, catch me at Morton's kind of going to the bathroom when they're bringing out the steak knife so I can miss the carnage. Um, but when you think about the scenes that you did film, again, you said there's lots of practical effects, lots of scenes that required lots of people to kind of have all hands on deck, literally and figuratively. What would you say was one of the more challenging scenes you had to shoot, and how did you overcome anything that kind of got in the way of what you intended?
Well, I think the answer you're looking for is that restaurant scene, and those were they were all stunt people. When the action started, we had every local stunt person. There were wonderful teams in Canada. Um, but the real answer is my favorite diva actress on the set, which was the cat. right? Well, I'm being honest. When the production team saw the breakdown and they said, well, obviously you're going to have a CGI cat. And I said, what was the last CGI cat outside of Lion King and all that?
Yeah, sure.
For some reason, house cats never look good in CGI. Even at that time, there was a Tom Hanks movie, first class studio movie, and the CGI cat was always distracting. So I said, this is going to be like the dog in the mask. We're going to find the right cat. And sure enough, we did. But it was you don't cats are very hard to train, and I don't have any harm or fear in any of my animals on any of my sets. So it's all about love and snacks. And that cat understood her job. She was getting a lot of attention for hitting her mark and doing the simple things. But it was all about being authentic to witches and the lore of witches and witchcraft. It's the witches familiar, and I'd never seen it done in a straight horror. And I thought, let's really do it. So when the cat comes, some shit's going to happen in Witchboard. When the cat shows up, watch out.
Yeah, no, I mean the cat's definitely the canary in the coal mine of horror here. And as a cat owner myself, I can't tell her what to do. She lives on her own rules. So I'm just here to put the food in the bowl. And my last question for you, Chuck, is if you were asked like, hey, we're giving you the chance to program a double feature with your new film Witchboard, what do you think would make a really fun companion piece to go to the theater and see with it?
Wow. Gosh, I don't know, because Witchboard is, I think one of the challenges of even starting this project was I wanted it to be terrifying, but also very entertaining. I wanted a deep story. There's not, I'll tell you what, I mean, it sounds like I'm bragging. I love Sinners this year, and I will
Oh,
tell
so
you
good.
that to see a horror film with dance and music used so originally, and the performances in that film and the deep story. So the reason I'm mentioning Sinners, which had maybe 10 times our budget, I don't know, but the uh, the depth of character and the depth of story is very important to me in Witchboard. So I would say that's a film where there's humor, there's sensuality. We have a lot of sensuality and character-based humor in Witchboard also. And they're both colorful films in their own way. So I no two movies are alike, but
Sure.
I'd be proud to have Sinners as a double feature. If you want to ask me my dream double feature, I give that entire cast, director, and Warner Brothers props for that picture.
Well, I think it, well, one, I'd watch that double feature in a heartbeat, because that would just be a very entertaining set of like, four, 3 and a half, 4 hours. But also, I think you're right. They both do focus on character driven actions. We're not necessarily following the horror so much as the horror is a byproduct of the people in the scenes, and what they're going through, especially the addiction with Emily facing and, kind of the challenge with her and her relationship. So yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there.
Thank you. And by the way, it turns out it could be a good date night movie because women seem to love it. Women who say I don't go to horror films, they're scared, but there's a love triangle. There's some really compelling things here. You mentioned drugs. Drug to me is a great metaphor for the obsession of magic,
Mm,
which is a misuse. Magic is just manifestation. So we
right.
manifest many things in our lives. A positive manifestation, I could call that magical as well. But we're cautionary against the negative manifestation where things like pendulum boards and Ouija boards can be used for. So we're not endorsing these activities, folks. We're trying to warn you against them. So that's my one caution, which our film.
Well, it's well, Witchboard, the cautionary tale of magic. I'll take it. And Chuck, I just want to say thank you so much for this time. Congratulations on the film. I know folks are going to love it, and they can catch it in theaters on the 15th of August. And I hope you come back to
Online,
horror again.
online uh, Witchboard movie 2025, and the ones we're doing, the really quick ones, because I have a short attention span anyway. We're doing quick clips on TikTok with Jamie Campbell Bower from Stranger Things that are amazing. Check it out.
Well, we'll make sure we'll link to that TikTok page so folks can check it out as well as the website. And again, Chuck, it's been a pleasure. Good luck with the rest of your interviews. And again, I look forward to seeing your name in the credits on films in perpetuity.
I ain't slowing down. Good questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chuck, and thank you, Giselle, so much for making the time.